Hey guys, I'm Dimension Jumper and today I'll be reviewing Persona 4 Arena Ultimax, which was released back in 2013 for the PS3 and then got a re-release for modern consoles, so the Xbox, PC, the PS4 and Nintendo Switch back in March of last year. Now the main plot is that the place of Inaba, where the events of Persona 4 happens, is covered in a thick fog, and it's up to both the cast of Persona 4 and 3 to kind of work together and stop the main villain Sho, and to basically stop him and get rid of the fog. And this kind of style is like a traditional arcade type game, so kind of like Street Fighter, or the original Street Fighter, or any of the Street Fighter games, or something like Mortal Kombat. But instead of it having super violent combat or violent moves like in Mortal Kombat, where you've got people decapitating other characters or ripping out their hearts, you basically just have this sort of cartoony anime style of fighting, in the sense that each character has their own unique moves, so kind of like how a lot of the other fighting games do it, like Smash Bros. And Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat, and each character has their own moves as well as the personas that they use in the game. So for instance, with Yunao Kami, he has his main persona is Anagi, with Akihiko, it's Caesar, which I think is his evolved persona. With Chie, she's got her own persona, and so on and so on. And I would say this is a very interesting looking game. This is probably the most cartoony version of a Persona game out there, I would say, because each of the characters are really interesting to play as, because you don't normally see the same character pop up twice. There are some instances of that when you look at the whole roster of characters, but apart from that, each character feels like their own. For instance, with Akihiko, with this persona, he can, whenever he summons it, it uses its own gravity. So that means whenever it's summoned, all the other character will be drawn towards you, and then you'll be able to hit and do damage. With Margaret, she's able to summon 3 different personas, and that's really cool because you can, depending on who you pick, depends on how you do in the battle or how in the match, because the controls in the game are quite easy to understand. It's kind of like, again, as I said before, it's like an arcade type game, so that means you're able to pick it up quite easily. Kind of like how if you might play Smash Bros, Mortal Kombat, or Street Fighter, you're probably able to pick it up in about an hour and a half ish, if you understand the controls really well and quite easily. And yeah, and now it's time for some gameplay. So when you turn on, or when you play Persona 4 Arena Ultimax, you can choose any of the various modes you can do, so story, battle, network, practice, that kind of thing. And when it comes to the story elements of the game, you have several choices to pick from. So you've got, I believe this is the Ultimax version of the story, and this is like the original story with the original game. And for the Ultimax version, it's surprisingly long. It looks like it's a surprisingly long story. And for the arena game, or for the arena story, it's like each character has their own specific stories, and also for both the Ultimax story and the Arena Ultimax story, it's based the whole thing in terms of when you're talking with characters is a visual novel style, kind of like Persona 3 Portable and Persona 4 Dancing. It's kind of like that, where you'll have you'll talk with some characters, and then you might go into some gameplay, whether it's fighting shadows or dancing to specific songs from the Persona 4 game, or from Golden, or whatever. And it's interesting. Obviously, it fits the games. It fits the games for what they are, and yeah, it's just a visual novel type story with gameplay elements every now and again, which is quite interesting. And then with battle mode, you've got various things you can do. So arcade, you've got a scoreboard or score track, golden arena, and versus mode. So let's choose versus mode. I'm just going to choose it for sake of this part of the review. And what I like is that you can pretty much choose every character from the off-go or from the start. As soon as you pick, if you're doing battle mode and you're playing against a friend or something, you can choose any of the characters from Persona 3 or 4. And it's also got some, I think, 2 new characters. Sho Minazuki, I probably butchered that, as well as Lapras. Now, these are the 2 new characters in the game that you can get to interact with, as well as play with, and stuff like that. And yeah, so for this, I'm just going to choose Margaret because she's the best character that I play as. So for whenever you choose a character, you can have a different colour for either both the characters and the personas, because each character, apart from this version of Sho, has a persona. So and it's all based on their own one. So for now, Kami is Izanagi. For let's see, for Kanji, it's, I forgot what his persona was, but it's the lightning dude. And for Margaret, it's Yoshitsune, and 2 other ones I've forgotten. Yeah, and for the characters, or for all the characters and personas, you can choose different colours for both of them. Or let's say I have Margaret have one colour, and then the personas have a different colour. Let's say this one, and then again. Oh, and also, yeah, the characters have different types. So you've got the normal type and the shadow type, and I believe, from what I've heard from a friend, the shadow type is the stronger version or something like that. Maybe I could be misremembering. And like always, like with the others, with like other characters, they all have different versions. They all have different colour schemes. They're kind of the same. Well, in terms of that, they have, I think, similar or a lot of the same colours, but they're used differently. So let's say for Naokami, he has this colour style, and for Izanagi, he has a gold one, let's say. And if you're playing against another character, or if you're in battle mode or against a friend, you can choose any of the stages yourself, or just random select, which I think is quite interesting, because then you have to really focus on which one, on the arena around you. And what I like about this game is that each character has their own title. So now Kami is a sister complex Kingpin of Steel. That's probably my favourite one, and probably the most memorable one to me, because he's the main character of Persona 4, and if you've played Persona 4 for Golden or seen the Persona 4 anime, that you can see why now Kami has a sister complex. So yeah, so The gameplay, the sort of mechanics, kind of works a bit like Street Fighter, in the sense that it's got this arcade feel to it, and you have to and it's and even talking about the gameplay and stuff, it's really hard to try and talk and play at the same time, because I have to talk about this and try and do as many buttons as I can, or combos as I can, and yeah, it's really fun, because I've played a lot of Smash Bros. Over the few years, because I started with the Wii U version, Smash Bros. For Wii U. Then I played Ultimate, and yeah, this game feels very different to Smash Bros. And also, if you can see in the corners where the where the health bars are, you can see cards, and you just saw that Narukami wasn't able to use his persona, and those cards represent the amount of durability that each persona has. So for Margaret, I think both she and Elizabeth have the most amount of cards, or most amount of durability for their personas, and I think the one with the least amount of durability is what's his name? It's the guy with Caesar. The one with the Caesar persona. Is it? It's not Kanji. It's I've forgotten the name. Oh, it's the guy who's got Caesar. He'll probably be on screen in a minute, or right now. But his persona in this game has the weakest durability out of all the shortest amount of durability in the game. Yeah. So yeah, and yeah, I think the gameplay's fairly interesting. I do like how you can summon your personas to do various things, and also you can have navigators on to help you. So you can have either Rize. From me playing the game, you can have Rize, Aigis, and Naruto, which can be really cool. And also you're given this sort of mock interview thing, with characters talking about the post-battle, as well as the amount of time that each battle took, which I think is quite cool. So that's been it for the gameplay. Now time to go back to the review. So one of the things that Persona 4 Arena Ultimax does, in terms of the story, when it comes to some of the cutscenes, is have the visual novel type aspect. Kind of like Persona 4 Dancing, because there are elements of, because both games are visual novel type stuff, and I would say Persona 3 Portable as well. That's kind of a sort of visual novel type game, but with Arena Ultimax. Not only does it have the visual novel, not only does it have some of the cutscenes that are like a visual novel, but it also has some of the animated cutscenes. For instance, when there's a bit in the game, I think it's from the original story, because Arena Ultimax has both the stories of Persona 4 Arena and Ultimax. And with Arena, you can choose any of the characters to play through, and there's a bit if you choose any of the, if you choose Chie, Yukiko, Yu, or Yosuke, there's a bit in when they go to the TV world, that's a whole animated cutscene. So it's got some of the visual novel stuff, and some of the more Persona animated cutscenes that you see in the other Persona games. And yeah, I would say that this game is fun. I do enjoy it. It is fairly easy to play, and I say it's fairly balanced as well. I would say that there will be a lot of matches that you'll probably win or lose, quite equally. Let's say you play 10 matches, 5 of those matches you win, 5 of those matches you lose. So it's quite balanced. It's quite balanced, and again, it depends on how good you are in the game. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't play the game if you're bad at it or not. I am saying just, if you want to play the game, you will probably get to grips quite easily with how it plays. And overall, I would say that Persona 4 Arena Ultimax is it's a really fun fighting game. I think it's one of those fighting games that you don't really expect to be good, but it actually is. And I do enjoy a lot of the things that this game has to offer, like the combat, the roster of characters, the fact that you can change the skins of the characters. So that being, if you choose Yunao Kami, you could have him completely covered in gold, or have wearing a white suit or a blue suit. And then for Izanagi, you can have him be completely red or blue or whatever. And that's really interesting. And some of them those are some really good ones. Probably one of my favourites is the Velvet Room attire for the characters. That's probably my favourite one, or one of my favourite ones for them. And overall, I do enjoy this game, and I think it's a really interesting spin-off. So yeah. So that's been my review for Persona 4 Arena Ultimax. I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.